Pax Vobis, and welcome to Breaking Fast on this Saturday at the end of the first week of Passiontide. Now, today's stational church is the rather wonderful um, San Giovanni a Porta Latina, the Church of St. John before the Latin Gate, which of course commemorates the martyrdom of St. John. Now, you may be thinking, hold on a minute, but St. John didn't die. No, he didn't. But he did go through the experience of martyrdom. He was sentenced to death by Domitian, the emperor, and he was sentenced to be boiled in oil alive. However, he came out of the bath. Well, he came out looking as if he'd had a refreshing bath. This so annoyed the emperor that he then exiled him to Patmos. And just as well he did, because that, of course, is where St. John received his divine revelation, which for us is now the book of the Apocalypse at the end of the New Testament. So, without further ado, now, a little bother trying to sort out the video, so having to resort to another method, which means that I will have to speak commentary over the top, because the commentary itself on the video is in Italian, which I don't know, but I suspect most of you aren't familiar enough with Italian to appreciate that commentary. So I shall give some commentary over the top, and here we will see the Church of St. John before the Latin Gate. So there is, of course, St. John the Evangelist himself, and this is the road up to the Basilica. A very ancient basilica, in fact, and considered to be one of the most picturesque of the old Roman churches. The enormous conifer, which you can see there, shades the antique well standing in the forecourt, plus the classical columns which support the medieval portico and the superb 12th century campanile, the bell tower, as you can see there. All these add up to an extraordinarily beautiful scene. There you see is the well. The church was originally reconstructed by Celestine III in 1191, and subsequently it has been restored several times more. Now that little church down there is San Giovanni in Oleo, St. John in the oil. That is believed to mark the exact place where St. John was put into a vat of hot boiling oil, from which he appeared as if he'd come from a bath. The care of the church has changed hands many times. It has belonged to the Lateran chapter, the Augustinians, the Confraternity of San Petronio de Bologna, and the Mercedean Scalzi, and the Minimi di San Francesco da Paola, who were driven out by the French in 1798. The state took over part of the buildings in 1873, and in the same year the Franciscan tertiaries of Albi took charge until malaria drove them away. Then came the Blue Sisters, the Sisters of Santissima Annunziata, who enclosed themselves in the convent. Here now is the interior of the main church, St. John before the Latin Gate. Finally, in 1937, the church and the buildings attached to it were entrusted to the Institute of Charity, known otherwise as the Rosaminians, who have carried out much restoration work. The interior of San Giovanni preserves the striking simplicity of its very early origins, as you can see. 10 beautiful antique columns of varying styles line the aisles. These lead to 2 minor apses flanking the main one, which we just saw. As a very unusual feature, the 3 apses are polygonal on the outside, and the central one is pierced by 3 selenite windows. The 12th century frescoes, as you can see there, were restored in 1940 and are also themselves exceedingly interesting. They depict scenes from Genesis, the creation and fall of man, and from the New Testament, the redemption. The Old Testament scenes start on the right side near the sanctuary, and the New Testament scenes are painted below them in 2 tiers. In the central apse are 12th century paintings of the 24 elders of the Apocalypse and the symbols of the evangelists. The octagonal chapel that we saw just previously of San Giovanni in Oleo, in oil, was built in 1509. But that's only the present chapel there. A chapeletta, a small chapel, has existed there for centuries. So there are the 24 elders of the Apocalypse in the apse of the main high altar. Very beautiful ancient mosaic pavement in the sanctuary. Cloth covered pews, note. And of course that's looking from the east to the west. I'm not quite sure why he's so fascinated with the pews. Ah, they were seemingly there from a wedding. Ah, well, there we go. So that was San Giovanni in Porta Latina, St. John before the Latin Gate, today's stational church in Lent in Rome. Now, of your charity, I would ask your prayers as we have our second conference in about an hour's time for our Year of Spirituality candidates for formation. So please, of your charity, pray for us as we look forward to meeting each other again over Zoom. We have candidates from several places in America and on the continent of Europe. So Zoom has, of course, proved to be a great champion of the lockdown. Everyone, or most people, are familiar with Zoom. Certainly I am, spending most of my time on Zoom, it seems, during the working week, various meetings. The other option, of course, is Microsoft Teams, which I have to say both have their pros and cons. I'm having to use both on a regular basis. I don't quite understand all the possibilities that one can have in utilizing them, or for facilitating all sorts of things. You can use them, for example, you can have the main screen, the main presentation, but you can also have rooms where people can go off and discuss things privately and then return to a main meeting or whatever. It's all great stuff, and it's all jolly clever and jolly interesting. And I know we are sometimes loath to extol the benefits or the virtues or the yeah, well, the virtues and the benefits of being online, but both these programs particularly have, of course, provided a lifeline for many people during the lockdown, and certainly have been integral to meetings discussing the various ways of serving people through the crisis. But anyway, I'm digressing there now. So of your charity, please do pray for me and our first year spirituality candidates. The first year of spirituality, for those unfamiliar with that concept, it's a kind of pre-formation course, in the sense that the first year of spirituality in the conventional seminarial system is a year really of introductions to candidates. So candidates may or may not have been officially approved for formation, for seminarial formation. So there is a mix in our class. Particularly, we have some who are postgraduate theologians and some who have never studied anything further than religious studies at school. But the first year of spirituality is an introduction across the board, and really, I suppose, it's an introduction to the priestly life and priestly spirituality. It's also a year of continued discernment, so that those candidates who have not yet been formally accepted for formation are being assessed, of course. Likewise, those who have been accepted are also being assessed. The first year of spirituality introduces various subjects that seminarians will go on to study. So an introduction to philosophy of religion, to theology, systemic theology, to notions of church doctrine, church history, ecclesiastical Latin, liturgy, as well as, of course, spiritually, an introduction to the priestly spiritual life, particularly, of course, looking at the office, the prayer of the church, but also to exploring aspects of priestly spirituality in both in the liturgy, both those that are expressed in the liturgy, but also, of course, in the daily life of a priest. So it's an interesting year. It's the first time that we will be delivering this in this way, i.e. via Zoom, but which I think is ultimately a positive thing, because it does mean that candidates are able to meet and share the experience together, even though they are hundreds of miles apart. So it's great in terms of fellowship. It's great for them to realize that they are not alone. It's great too for us facilitating the year of spirituality, because it means we can hit everyone at once. So rather than having to do, as it were, one-to-ones with several different people, we can capture everyone at one time and introduce subjects and talk about things, and we can have discussions, and I think that's going to be the real boon to this year's first year spirituality, is the ability and the opportunity for candidates to discuss. So I'm quite looking forward to this afternoon's session. We're beginning with Old Roman history, with some church history. So I'm looking forward to, I hope, what will be an interesting and enlightening discussion, as much for me as for the candidates. So if you would hold that intention in your prayers from 4 p.m. GMT, I would be most grateful. Then, of course, at 6 o'clock we have the Angelus, followed by Express Rosary. I should just explain that term Express Rosary, because actually those of you who are old hands at the Rosary, when I say Express Rosary, I just mean a normal paced rosary, as opposed to the slightly slower, more contemplative paced rosary that I often otherwise provide for the recitation after the Angelus. So although I use the term Express Rosary, it's not really an Express Rosary to anyone who's used to the Rosary. It's a normal paced rosary, and even then actually possibly a little bit slower than others would take in a private recitation. But that's at 6 o'clock, and of course is a great opportunity, like that Zoom for first year spirituality. It's a great opportunity for Christians all around the globe to come together and pray in real time together the same prayers, and to share intentions. If you've not joined us before, in the comments, and the broadcast is live to YouTube, to various Facebook pages and groups, and via Twitter and Twitch. And so people participating in real time can, in the comments, post prayer intentions. They can post the names of loved ones. They can give a little précis of a scenario, a situation that needs prayer, and they post those in the comments. And then as the recitation goes along, more or less for each Ave, one of the intentions from the comments appears on the screen centrally here, so that everyone in all those different platforms can see the same names and intentions and pray for them. So it's a wonderful, I think, way of experiencing fellowship in prayer. And as I say, what I appreciate particularly and because I'm central, so of course I can see where everyone is and where everyone's watching from. I get a real sense of that fellowship and communion of Christians from all over the world. Those who are in the particular platforms may not necessarily sense that, unless others are with them in the same channel that they're watching, and they know that they are, they know where they are watching from. But certainly, from my perspective, as the admin, I can see where everyone's from, and it's great to know that, and comforting to know, and I think a great use of this technology to enable Christians to pray together, even though we're hundreds of miles, literally hundreds of miles apart. So if you haven't joined that, please do join us from 6 p.m. every day. 6 o'clock we say the Angelus, and then we have the Rosary. Saying that, of course, next week is Holy Week, and so there will be some changes to the schedule. For a start, from Wednesday, from Spy Wednesday through the Triduum, there will not be an evening Angelus and Rosary. Instead, there will be Tenebrae, the night office of Tenebrae, which is technically Matins and Lauds of the next day, is traditionally recited the evening before. Now, some of you may recall that in Lent, the hours of the offices of the prayer of the day, of the prayer of the church of the day, are all slightly askewed. So to express the disorder and chaos in the world that our Lord's death and resurrection will restore and correct. So this is particularly noticeable in Holy Week to those who don't recite the office. For those who do, of course, we've been saying Matins and Lauds every evening, where normally one would say Vespers throughout the season. But Tenebrae always is a bit special because of the Sacrum Triduum, and it's often when it becomes more, the faithful more notice it more. So from 5:30 this coming Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we will be broadcasting Tenebrae. Now, forewarned is forearmed. Um, Tenebrae roughly lasts about 2.5 hours. It's a long service, but it's a very beautiful service. During it, candles on the altar are lit, and also what's called a hearse. Now, I'm not talking about I'm not talking about an undertaker's mode of transport, but a hearse is a kind of standing candelabra which has 15 candles in the shape of a pyramid, and it stands on the epistle side of the sanctuary. And basically, after each psalm and reading, the readings, by the way, are the Lamentations of Jeremiah. They are beautiful. But after each psalm and reading, a candle is extinguished, so that by the end of the office, there is one candle left, and it is taken from the hearse and hidden behind the high altar. At that point, the church is in darkness, and then the light is brought out again. And that, of course, to remind us of our hope. So it's a beautiful office, very meditative. This week's The Old Roman, our weekly newsletter, a link to which is in the description or the notes of this program towards the bottom. You can click on that, click past issues, and then look for the latest issue, which came out yesterday for Palm Sunday. In there are links to missalettes. So the liturgies of the Triduum. There is a booklet that you can download PDF, which has Latin and English side by side, and you can do that for all the masses of Holy Week. You can do that for the liturgy of Maundy Thursday, the liturgy of Good Friday, and the liturgy of the Easter Vigil on Holy Saturday. And you can also download, if you like, the 3 Tenebrae offices for Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday, which are recited the evening before and will be broadcast online. So you can join in. And actually, those booklets have the dots. They have the chant annotated as well. So if you're brave enough, you can join in with the chanting. That would be nice, actually, because of the situation with COVID, I will be on my own in the chapel. So it would be nice to think there are others chanting the psalms with me. And it's a bit of a marathon for somebody on their own, but I did it last year, so I'm sure I can do it again this year. Yeah, it's there are some great resources in this week's The Old Roman that are downloadable, including some very interesting articles on Holy Week itself, on the liturgy of Holy Week. And coming out today or tomorrow, there is another Holy Week edition, which will again give even more information and description of the rites and ceremonies and the liturgies that are offered during Holy Week. This season, as you know, is one of my favourites, Holy Week. There is so much in Lent, there is so much in Passiontide, and now Holy Week is just an explosion of beauty, of spirituality, of symbolism, of significance, of theology. There's too much. There's too much, and it's all wonderful and interesting and exciting. So we hope in the Old Roman to try and share that some of that with you. So do look out for those publications. If you haven't already, let me just find the link. Is that right? Let me just check before I post that is correct. Yes, it is. Okay. There we are. So that's scrolling at the bottom there, theoldroman.org. If you go to that website, it'll come up with a subscription pop-up. Please, it's free, but in order to receive it, you need to be signed up for it. So fill in the subscription form. If you love authentic Catholic tradition, if you love the authentic Latin Rite liturgy, then it's well worth subscribing to. It gives the Ordo for every week. It gives you details about the saints' days, about Catholic traditions, devotions, lots of interesting articles and links to all sorts of information. So do subscribe to that if you haven't already. So yes, so 6 o'clock is the next broadcast. That will be the Angelus and Express Rosary. Then at 6:45 is our end of the week show, Old Romans Unscripted. And that'll be our pre-Palm Sunday edition, well, indeed pre-Holy Week edition. So do join us for that at 6:45 p.m. GMT. After that, of course, tonight will be the Daily Examen at 10 p.m. And then tomorrow morning, 8:30, Blessing of Palms and Palm Sunday Mass in the traditional Latin Rite, which is, of course, the pre-55 rubrics. So I do hope you'll be able to join us at any or all of those broadcasts. Bless you and thank you for indulging me. And take care of yourselves. Don't forget my prayer intention at 4 o'clock, please, of your charity. Look out for and look after others. And remember, as always, God loves you. Take care for now.
Precious Lord.